Howdy! Welcome to Transfer Pricing Spring 2021. We've all had a very, unfortunately, interesting year, as the Chinese proverb goes. Hopefully, this year will be a lot healthier and different than last year. I am William Byrnes. I'm the lead professor and the treatise author. That's the textbook we're using for transfer pricing, risk management 1 and 2. I'm the lead professor, meaning, as we'll see in a few slides, I've organized a core group of faculty who each week an expert has designed a case study and will facilitate that case study with the different student teams. I'll be on top of the entire course and working or going through the case studies as well, but I'm the one who's prepared the course itself, the materials, videos, and dealing with Canvas behind the scenes. For those of you on campus, my JD students, my office is room 164. That's behind student services. While I will always be in the office on Monday and Wednesday because I teach federal income taxation in the morning, the other days it is better if you're going to stop by to text or email me to inform me, because with the pandemic, we're trying to reduce the amount of people in the building, and with classes starting up and obviously going, that stretches that capacity. And so we take turns on when, as faculty, we can be in the building or not. And so anyway, I can be there. It's just I need to be told by you, the students, so that I can make sure my little area of my floor knows we can take turns. Okay. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with each other on LinkedIn. And on this slide, finally, view my programmatic YouTube orientations. On YouTube, I have several how-to videos, how to use Canvas, by example. But most importantly, I have orientation videos that explain how this program works, the curriculum for wealth, for risk, for international tax risk, various faculty members, materials, how to access the library, or libraries plural, and so forth. In today's orientation for transfer pricing risk management courses 1 and 2, I'm going to just touch on a few of those aspects, such as the library databases. Otherwise, you really need to go into the YouTube orientation video. It's about an hour, and you can scroll through it to get to the specific points. By example, using Canvas. And since I've mentioned the word a couple times, we are using Canvas. Most of you have not used Canvas before. I had not used it before fall. And so I've been learning as I go along how to set up Canvas courses, the formatting. It's definitely harder than Blackboard, but better. It takes a lot more work on the faculty member side for the formatting and the inputting and the connecting. But once it's done, then it's a much better experience for the students. Blackboard didn't, at least I haven't seen the most latest version, but the version up until 2 years ago, faculty members really couldn't control all that much of how the links worked in formatting. So it's a double, it's two sides of the coin. Wow, you've gotten control over your course. you've gotten control of your course. I mean, you have to learn formatting and so forth like that. But the experience is inevitably better. If you as a student would like to do some Canvas training so you know how to navigate around, or maybe one day you'll be using Canvas within your company to teach or what have you, go to lms.tamu.edu. Every day, there are 2 different 1-hour signups for hands-on training, one-on-one training with instructional designers on different aspects of Canvas. That's probably a little too much, for y'all as students. You can just watch the videos they have available. And but they do have help sessions. By example, this week they have several hours, more than just the 2 1-hour office hours, if you will, a day. I think there are about 30 instructional designers on staff now who are there for the office hours. So you book a spot, and I think people book 15-minute increments, and so they can handle 60 people in a 1-hour session. Anyway, if watching Canvas videos is probably good enough, and that's on lms.tamu.edu. So we just need to keep calm and read our syllabus. By now, all of y'all have received the syllabus. You're downloaded it from Howdy, or you're in the Canvas course and you've already read the syllabus. You're probably watching this video from within the Canvas course, although I tend to upload it to YouTube as well. The first thing we're going to look at in our syllabus is who are our faculty. Now, I deal with staff on the programmatic, the library, and all that in the orientation video on YouTube for the program. Who do you need to contact for a registrar, for student services? Okay, that's all in the orientation video for the program. For this purpose, we're looking at our 5 core faculty members. And so by example, we're going to start with Lorraine Eden. I think we'll start with Lorraine Eden. Let's see if my slide wants to advance or not. Great. Lorraine Eden. Dr. Lorraine Eden, who's a full-time professor at Texas A&M, but she's in emeritus status now. She's at Mays Business School, and now as a research economist at the law school. She is one of the preeminent scholars in management theory, not just transfer pricing. Last I checked, she was at 15,000 citations. It's like a really large number. If you look at like Google citation check or whatever, it's just an incredibly large number. She is emeritus, but she is constantly publishing in various legal trade journals about issues in transfer pricing. She's certainly one of the most respected academic scholars in the world, if I would say it, if not the most, in the field of transfer pricing. Her link for the transfer pricing Aggies is on your slide. So please go to LinkedIn, find transfer pricing Aggies, and also join our transfer pricing Aggies group. Lorraine will be leading week 2 and week 6 of course number 1. She'll come back in course number 2, which we'll address in the course number 2 orientation. Dr. George Salus has been involved with this program since this program was initiated in Miami. If you've watched the orientation, actually I started the program in 1994 in South Africa, online. I mean, that's, pretty forward thinking back then. When I moved back to the United States and we initiated a Miami program, Dr. Salus joined. He was at that time an academic. He was a dean of, I believe it was Rollins College in Florida. And he has since gone on to become the principal economist and the tax policy advisor at Vertex, which is $1 billion tax software company in the indirect tax space. And he focuses on, tax policy and economics, but of course, transfer pricing. So Dr. George Salus, as I said, has been with the program since, I think, the year 2000. And then he graduated, of course, and so on. And he's been teaching transfer pricing with me in the program for probably 15 years, I think 15 years. And we used to teach econometrics together, in fact. And I forgot everything, and he's really brilliant and remembers everything, like a photographic memory on it. Really good at being able to handle the mathematics, economics. What's that have to do with transfer pricing? We have those lectures in your week number 1. Dr. Bruno da Silva, he's also involved in several of the courses. For this course, he's going to open up week 1 with me. We're going to deal with the arm's length standard, how we got there. And he's designed the first case study, very simple case study, where the 5 teams are divided into 5 stakeholder roles. And each team will, on the presentation day, so we're having our live session on Tuesday, then we'll have our presentation session on Friday at 9 a.m. on Zoom. And each team will present its stakeholder role. One's representing the taxpayer, the company. Another team is representing country A. Another team, so the third team will be representing country B, so the 2 tax authorities. One team is the advocate general. US people, you won't know what that is, but in Europe, in European Union, they have an advocate general. It's like a judicial clerk, if you will. It's more important than judicial clerk, but it's the closest analogy we have in the United States. Who writes a memo, a brief for the judge to influence the judge's decision one way or the other. So like a magistrate, perhaps at the trial court level, except juries make decisions, not obviously, generally speaking, not judges, but on areas of law, the judges make the decisions. Okay, so the advocate general is a position we just kind of self-created for purposes of a team that comes in and assesses the arguments of the other teams, so 3 teams presenting, and then renders its advisory opinion. Finally, team 5 will be the court, the adjudicator. And for the first case study, there is actually a court. I would rather y'all not go look it up, go match the case study to facts and find there. If you're in the field of transfer pricing, you'll be like, oh, I recognize that. I'd rather you not look at the decision until after the case study, because the objective of the case study is not to find the right answer. Transfer pricing has a lot of gray. It's economics, it's law, it's accounting. We discuss all those in week 1 lectures. So it's not about finding the right answer. We'll court decide. We'll post the actual case as soon as the case study is over. our case study is for each stakeholder to vehemently argue their, discuss and debate their position, so that in the analytical argumentative process, we uncover the strengths and weaknesses of different aspects. Remember, this is a very simple case study. We're just sticking with the arm's length and some comparability. And then week 2 is really deep comparability, but simple comparability. And you don't have to know anything about transfer pricing other than reading for the first case study, the week 1 materials, or watching those videos, nothing else. You don't have to go run off and do your own research and read my treatise and all that. We're keeping it simple. It's a discussion debate based on the information that you are provided in week 1. And after the case study, we'll discuss the case itself and then why the judge decided what the judge decided. But however, we don't want that to influence the discussion. We don't want it, the judge said no. This is not based on what the judge said in that case. This is based on our alternative universe, if you will. And so we're going to come up with our own decision. In fact, it will be rendered by Team 5. So, and Bruno and I will be spectators. Okay. So Bruno will be involved in week 1. He comes back in the second course, and then he's involved. For those of you who are taking other courses in the program, you'll see him in EU taxation. In term B, you've seen him in international tax and tax treaties, where he and I co-teach the entire course. We still invite in experts, and other courses in the program. Course 2, we're going to start off with Dr. Deborah Toluto. She's been involved, or we've been involved for like 10 years now, maybe 11. She was a student in Florida and then approached me, said, well, I want to learn about transfer pricing. I said, well, I have a transfer pricing course. And that started a dialogue that's lasted all these years. And then she began teaching for me, I guess. So I've been at 6 years, 4 years, probably 11 years. And so she's been teaching, especially intangibles and royalties. She's worked at some really significant, some major companies, leading their transfer pricing teams. And multinational large companies. Now she's a senior tax manager at Veritas, which for those of you who are in transfer pricing, you'll recognize the name Veritas. It's a very well-known case where the taxpayer won and set off a chain reaction that is still fighting itself out today. But she's been in other major companies. She can talk to you about that. You can go to her LinkedIn and see what those companies were. She's managed tax departments. She's managed a lot of transfer pricing controversy, not just in the US, but she speaks, she's Brazilian, so in Brazil, but in other countries, because she's been head of transfer pricing for multinationals dealing with multinational issues and different tax authorities and so forth. Okay, so Deborah's going to come in course 2, lead off our first week, looking at royalties and intangibles and how we value those using different databases or other techniques. She's going to give a real practical hands-on of running a transfer pricing or a tax department as well. The last person of our core faculty will be Havis Chowdhury. I met Havis at the United Nations Expert Committee for International Tax Experts. And he's been head of the transfer pricing subcommittee, and in fact he was the lead on drafting the United Nations manual, transfer pricing manual. After that, he turned around and drafted the extractive industries manual, including its transfer pricing chapters for the United Nations. So he's on the extractive industry subcommittee as well. With the pandemic, the United Nations not meeting in person anymore. Can't wait till it's back because Geneva's nice, and there's a Geneva meeting. There's 3 equal headquarters of the United Nations. One's in Kenya. I've never been there, but the Geneva one and the New York one mirror each other. And so it's fall meeting is in Geneva, spring meeting is in New York each year. So Hadith is going to bring in both the United Nations perspective, developing countries where he works with them. He's worked for the IMF. He was a director at the IBFD. And so he's worked with developing countries all of his life. He was formerly, as you read, HMRC, i.e. that's the United Kingdom's tax authority. But from there, he went to IMF and so forth. And now he consults for developing countries on fiscal, economic, and transfer pricing tax policy. So he's going to bring that expertise to his 2 weeks of case study dealing with extractive industries as the situation, as the scenario, but he's going to look at different aspects because doesn't matter, whether you say extractive industries or technology, there's intangibles. There are tangibles. There are services. There are the similarities amongst all supply chain and global value chain. So he's going to bring that from the developing countries of the United Nations perspective as well. In your syllabus, we talk about our learning goals. And just to highlight, we're going to be looking at big data economic comparability analysis. That includes financial ratios, profit level indicators, key performance indicators, and I'm a lawyer. Oh my God, I've never dealt with that. Don't worry. Dr. George Salus and I, but mainly George, because I mean, I write about this all the time. I mean, I have the leading treatise. It's well over 2,000 pages. I don't know right now, but I'm writing on it all the time, and yet I'm also forget information and learn. It's like musicians. You have 100 songs, and you know how to play 30 of them really well at any given time. But I like to, whenever George and I lecture, then it forces me to brush up on all my econometrics and how to do, what's the best financial ratios, what's the flavor of the year, if you will, and read all the academic articles that are written in the last 12 months on financial ratios that are being used as key performance indicators, or in transfer pricing, we call them profit level indicators. Anyway, we're going to walk you through it. For lawyers, it's not that you have to be able to do it. You'll hire economists to do it, but you have to be aware of how they're doing it. And if you're just like for the economists, you don't have to do the legal research. You'll hire lawyers to do that. But you have to be aware of what sources they can look at, why they're approaching it a certain way, where are they looking, and so forth. So, everybody has something to learn, and everybody has something to contribute to the table in this program. So we're going to be going through the valuation methods. We're going to value risk because risk is very important to transfer pricing, but this is also a risk management program. So we're constantly in every course in the risk management side of this, looking at risk and some way, I say value, but some way to quantify as opposed to just a qualitative, gut level, or, well, that's blue risk and that's red risk. We, try and put numbers behind it. The hardest part of transfer pricing is the intangibles, and the aptly named hard to value intangibles doesn't mean impossible to value. And we'll have those debates and discussions during course number 2, because I have very, strong views, and I have colleagues who have equally strong opposite views. And and we're both right and we're both wrong. Whatever. Maybe it's just the filter of perspective you're coming from, but we're going to debate that out for you, and so you'll see the strengths and weaknesses. We're going to talk about cost contribution arrangements and platform contributions, because that's a lot of discussion going on with the OECD right now, and not just with the transfer pricing guidelines, but with the digital taxation of technology companies, from the Amazons to the Googles to the Facebook and so on. Okay. Now let's do books and materials. In the Canvas course, you'll have and I'm showing you the Blackboard screen. I have the other Canvas screens because we don't have, I don't have the, actually, I just received access to the Canvas course today where I can see all the full students and start to develop it out. So I have actually built out the first two full modules. And so after I upload this lecture, I'm going to open the course for the students. Every week, we have materials, a page, call it a folder, and it's going to have your textbook. That's my treatise. So we have different chapters, and in your syllabus, I have it so hyper specific, obviously, to which chapters we're studying, but what's in the chapters, point by point. So hyper specific. It's easy for me to do that because I have to do it because I write the treatise anyway. And so it's like, call it accordion expanded table of contents. We're going to have cases. So we're going to have a folder or an area within the folder that's just cases. And we're going to have the case study every single week. So there'll also be video lectures and so forth like that. We'll get to that in a moment. The book is available on LexisNexis, and I'll show you in a moment. So what's the book called? Again, Practical Guide to U.S. Transfer Pricing. So I do global, I do OECD and UN, but primarily, the United States was the leader in transfer pricing up until, really the last decade, even less than a decade. And so, the United States led the way in what other countries were following. The United States, a big complex, legal system relative to what other countries have capacity for. And so, the OECD is a simplified version. I don't want to say simplified version of US rules because it's not how the OECD would see it, but let's just say it's a complementary version of the US rules that is easier to implement really the old OECD rules, 2010, let's say, not the most recent BEPS, 2015 onward. And then we have the United Nations rules. So anyway, I cover all that in my book, and I have other books that deal with transfer pricing to specific industries, whether it's intellectual property and technology. That I write that treatise. I write another treatise called Federal Taxation of Oil and Gas. So as I mentioned, within the treatises, every time I talk about a US thing, I always cite and contrast it to the OECD version and to the United Nations version. And I cite to the OECD and the United Nations, and we'll link site check. You can link over from Lexis or what have you. I'll show you that in a moment. So the book is really well-rounded, and actually I'm starting to include foreign countries, meaning not US countries, in the treatise now, their transfer pricing policies as separate chapters. So we used to flip the classroom approach. This is about the lectures now, the video lectures. By example, in week 1, I have recorded about 3 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours of introductory lecture about transfer pricing itself, that we can all be on the same page. So I've never, heard the word transfer pricing before. I just had to take this course because I'm in the program. This 4 hours of lectures will give you a contextual background with the, of course, I include the PowerPoints to help you to get to a point where you're okay. Now I understand the multidisciplinary aspect, like accounting, financial accounting, economics, these PLIs I mentioned, KPIs I mentioned, the law, where the regulatory. So okay, I understand where, you know, how that all plays together. I understand where I look for law. I understand. Okay, all that's covered in those 4 hours. Bruno separately has made a couple hours video lectures also specific to the case study. So you'd watch mine first, they appear first in the Canvas as a context of the entire course, courses 1 and 2, and then Bruno's for the case study itself. After you've watched the lectures and read the materials, we use the live sessions, i.e. Tuesday and generally Friday in this class, but Dr. Salus will be doing his on Sundays. We use the live sessions only for discussion. We don't want to lecture there because that's what we just record that then and put it here in your Canvas classroom like now. So the Tuesday and the Friday sessions are for live and interactive discussion, engaged discussion. That's the flipped classroom model. So instead of ever having information being delivered in a one person to group, it's a discussion, collaborative discussion or debate or moot, if you will. Okay. And that brings us to case studies. So as I say, every week we're going to use case studies, and case studies are going to be in teams. Now we'll discuss teams on the first day on Tuesday, but within Canvas, each week you click on people and you're going to find your weekly team. And your team is going to be able, you're going to see the emails, and within the student view of Canvas, you'll be able to email all your team or so forth to get them together. Right now, if I can copy teams from one week to another exactly as they are, then I'm going to keep the teams for 2 weeks each. For most people are taking both courses. Actually, I think everybody right now. So I think we have about 20 people. So that would give you, forgetting the capstone week for a moment. So let's just look at the 6 substantive weeks for each course. They're really 7 because of the 2 capstones. Now I think there's a 15th week, a capstone of the capstones, if you will. But it's not substantive work. Don't worry. It's about hands-on training with databases and so forth. It gives you, out of 12 weeks, you'd have 6 opportunities to be with a different team, or out of 6 weeks, you'd have 3 opportunities and so on. Okay. I think that's right. But if Canvas doesn't allow the weekly teams to be copied over, because I just click a button, and the button, I say 5 teams, and then Canvas allocates you to the teams. It's not me doing it. And now I can go change it up afterwards, but I don't. I just I leave it as Canvas. It does equal number of people for teams, or there's not, it can't be divided into 5. Then maybe one team's gonna have 4 and the others, but whatever. So in general, we like to use teams of 3 people or 4 people. 3 or 4. We don't like 5s because it's too hard to get 5 people together to have a discussion for the team to meet. 3 people can meet. 4 people can meet a little bit harder, but it's easier to divide up the work. Like 4 people, you have more time. If each person gave, by example, 5 hours, you'd have 20 hours of time to be spent on preparing the work, as opposed to 3 people, 15 hours. Okay, so we're going to use a team-based approach, and as I said, we're going to discuss teams. in the live session on Tuesday so you can ask questions. But to keep it simple, the team members will divide up the tasks and collaboratively work on all tasks, but somebody has to champion each task. What are the tasks? Somebody got to do a PowerPoint, somebody has to do the memo, and somebody has to do the presentation. If there are 4 team members, then you'll collaboratively decide how that's going to work. But even when I say somebody has to do, that somebody is in charge, responsible party, but supposed to get feedback and input from the other team members. If one team member is pulling all the weight, we're going to know immediately, because in the assessments each week, each team member peer reviews each other team member and submits it through Canvas to us, the professors. So we know who participated and who did not participate on their team. If somebody can't attend a live session, that's okay, because maybe they helped with the PowerPoint, did more substantive work on the PowerPoint. They're not the presenter that week. So we'd like everyone to attend. We think it's valuable to attend, but if somebody can't attend for work or family reasons, it's understandable, as long as they worked with their team and, I call it, carried some weight. If the team peer reviews that person is, they didn't carry their weight, we didn't even know they were on our team, they're going to get 0 points. So there's a rubric within the Canvas of getting the points. And I'll just mention this because it's, we'll talk about it on Tuesday as well. How does grading work? Well, it's in your syllabus, but teams assess the other teams. There's a rubric, you follow the rubric, you can get up to 12 points awarded by another team, and then another 4 points for your assessment of the other teams and peer review and so forth. So 16 points a week. But the teams assess each other. And so each team has 4 assessments because there's 5 teams. And you don't assess yourself. The average of those 4 assessments is the team points. And you get full points if your peer reviews by the other team members say you participated. But they have 2 other choices. One, you didn't participate at all, 0. We already heard that one. And there's a middle ground. Showed up for the meetings, didn't do the work, but did discuss, half point. You get half the points. So let's say a team got 12 points for the week. Half points, obviously 6. And so you can add up your points each week. How do you know what your points are? Because each team on that peer review of the other teams uploads that into the discussion forum in Canvas. It's all very clearly marked out, very clearly explained in Canvas, so that each team knows the feedback instantaneously from 4 other teams on their PowerPoint presentation and memo. And if you don't know instantaneously, it means the team that didn't submit, they didn't get their up to 4 points for that review process that week. So you can figure out your grade as you go along by just adding up the points and averaging. The peer review internally within the team, you won't know. And however, you do know, because you do know whether you participate or not. So Bruno and I are the inevitable, and me actually, because I'm the head professor, I'm the primary professor of this course. So I have to issue the grades, and the general rule I use on all the courses and tell all the professors is we don't grade down, we only grade up. So we take the average, and then sometimes we move it up, not because of a curve, but because maybe there's somebody who's Machiavellian about the, like in the JD program where there's a curve being applied. Well, only, out of 30 students, only by example, 5 can get A's. And so, you know, if all 30 are trying to compete for the A's and only 5 can get it, well, then you have a more likely chance of getting the A if somebody else got a C. And so there's a lot of competition, Machiavellian type competition, if you will, or Survivor. I never watched the show, but whatever. There's, you know, vote somebody off the island kind of competition to get those, you know, curve A's, the curve B's, and so on. Okay, we don't have that. Everybody can get an A. Everybody can get a B. Some people get A, some people get B, some people get F's. It's based strictly on meeting the either minimum standard or the expectation. Well, how do I know what those are? The rubrics, they're in the rubrics, exactly what you have to do each week. Okay, so we're going to meet with Zoom. For us to meet with Zoom, as a student, you must go register for your Zoom account. If that you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to go back to the administration and ask for an orientation package. Regardless if it's just, oh yeah, I read that, but I didn't. Okay, go to zoom.tamu.us. I don't know why it's not edu, but it's not. Anyway, or I don't even do that. I just Google Zoom and I Google TAMU, and that's why I find the page. But yeah, I should save it in my favorites one day, but I already have too many favorites saved. So, and then it says, you know, well, as you can see on the screen, students, faculty, or staff, you students, you register through this page. You register with your UIN and your network ID password that you set up. Once you have a Zoom, it allows you to access both the live sessions for the course. The links are in your syllabus. The links are in the Canvas course each week. But it also allows you to communicate with each other. And, you know, like an example like this, you know, in your teams. So somebody can set up the Zoom meeting with their Texas A&M Zoom account. Okay, I have a personal Zoom account. Well, yeah, if you want, but the university pays for every single student to have a Zoom account. When I say every, I mean literally every student at Texas A&M. This is not the pandemic. This was a year and a half before the pandemic. This was already being done. And so you're talking about 100,000 Zoom licenses. We're the largest public university in the United States now. I think there are about 70,000 students on the campus. You have online students, da, da, da. Sign up for your Zoom license. Get your Zoom account so that you can set up your own Zoom meetings, and so on. Okay. Yes, I have FERPA permission from all the students from the first year who you see there. Some of these are teachers. Libraries. Now, before we get to libraries, help desk. This is covered in the orientation on YouTube, so I just mention that there is a help desk. It's 24/7, 360. Not during holidays, not during Christmas, but otherwise, the help desk. I don't know. I've called it at 2 in the morning. They answer. I've called it at 4 in the morning because I stay up all night writing books or whatever, and somebody answers. I'm always shocked, and it's on our campus. It's not outsourced. These are real Aggies on College Station dealing with you. So they know the systems. They're real Aggies. A lot of them are technology students or full-time staff. I think they have 30 full-time staff. They have 10 people there at any given time. I think more than that. They have a 3-story building on the campus, but whatever, they're able to handle it. Generally, I don't call them. I email them, and then I get a response in 24 hours, or I chat. They have a chat function. Now, the chat function is not 24/7, but it exists. How do I find it? Well, at the top of the screen, you see it.tamu.edu, but I Google it. I Google ITTAMU. That's how I find it. I also Google help desk TAMU. That brings me to university libraries. It's important if you are a new student that you go and register for your university library databases that require that, like Westlaw. I don't use Westlaw so much because I write for Lexis, but your Lexis and any other databases are required. The library will have sent you a welcome package or something like that with a Lexis password and a Westlaw password. I'll show you that in a moment. But the other thing you should do is go check out now the electronic resources available using your network ID and your password. And so I'm going to show you some of those resources just to whet your appetite. We have the full OECD. So where do I find the OECD transfer pricing guidelines? We have them for you at the OECD library. In the orientation module called the Howdy module of Canvas, I have a how to research little write-up on the OECD to find materials in the OECD. Bureau van Dijk, a Moody's analytics company. We have BVD, we call it for short, BVD. Their financial data information so that we can create comparable ratios and so forth. And you're going to learn how to use that. We also have S&P's Capital IQ, which Lorraine Eden particularly likes, Fitch Connect, Checkpoint, OneSource, Cross-Border Solutions, which is a artificial intelligence AI program, will come show itself off to the students and how to use that. And some other databases will come and show themselves off during our capstone weeks. Within the electronic resources, we also have, like, for the law library proxy server, tax analysts, that's used a lot by the students. IBFD, you see on the right-hand side of your slide, for all the international tax courses. We use IBFD a lot. Kluwer, CCH, you'll find that as well. And if you're having an issue with your password, contact Professor Joan Stringfellow, who is the head of technical and electronic services at our law library. She's a law librarian. She sent out, it goes automatically to every student who's admitted, JD, LLM, MJUR, doesn't matter. Every student gets a Lexis Advanced or Lexis Plus, it's actually called now. And Westlaw, and it's called West something now, West Plus, West Next, West something. And so as she wrote, you know, you will have received an email directly. She's entered your name into Lexis and Westlaw, you know, Excel spreadsheet of all the new admits, and they forwarded you. And if you can't find it, she can go back into the Lexis or Westlaw system and shoot them your name again, and it will shoot you out an email, and then you register through that mechanism. I personally, you don't have to do this. I find that some databases work better when I set up the university VPN. In the old days, VPN sucked. They ate up a lot of bandwidth. They just caused trouble. The new softwares for VPNs, you don't even notice them. It's the same as proxying directly into the, so you can VPN into the network and then access, or you can proxy directly into the resource. So VPN, you are in the Texas A&M network and then accessing. I find sometimes the databases work better, or ironically a little faster, even though you're tunneling using a VPN. Maybe it's just my experience, but what is good is that the VPN is easy to set up. So I had this old, like 10-year-old, or no, older, 13-year-old lecture on YouTube about setting up a VPN. It was like an hour-long lecture, and it's the one that got, let's say, has 30,000 hits or something. It's just some incredible amount of hits. 30,000 watches. Not my tax ones, no. The how to set up a VPN. I think it was an hour long because it used to take an hour to set up a VPN. Now it takes 5 minutes. So we only have a couple slides left. We're coming up on our hour of this lecture. So when you go into your course, or you've been in the course already, you want to go to your Howdy Aggies Begin Here module. So it says at the top of the module, Howdy Aggies Begin Here, and just walk through it by line item. I mean, you can skip around, you can do whatever you want, but I've set it up for you to go like kind of step by step. Start with your course overview, then go to the introductory tutorial letter, and so on. The primary activity of your Howdy Aggies Begin Here module, I want everybody to go in and do a social biography, which is explained to you in your introductory tutorial letter, and you'll see on the screen before you a link that says Social Biography Forum. That is my example social biography. So I also have in the homepage of the course, go do your social biography. So I want everybody to submit that. I don't force you. There's no grade. There's no whatever. It's, you know, if you want to create sticky relationships within this program, and because we don't meet for coffee or beers you know, after class, certainly not with COVID. Nobody does with COVID anymore anyway. We achieve the same kind of networking through the social biographies. I have been doing that since 1994. I know they work. I know they create sticky relationships. So just follow what I did as my example and do your own. You don't have to be as extensive as mine. Mine's obviously, I've been working on it for 25 years, 26 years, 1994, 26 years, 27 years. My God. And is that right? 27 years online. Crazy, crazy. But so do your social biography. You know, OECD research, you see tips and tricks with Lexis, you'll see on the screen before you. Legal citation method for the non-lawyers, and so on. Then after you do Howdy Aggies, then move on to week 1. So as I mentioned, the social biographies forum, read mine, emulate, do your own. Thank you very kindly. We're at the end of our hour. If you have questions about the course, you saw it on the slide. You have the slide pack also downloaded. On the slide, it said in the Howdy Aggies module, the orientation module, it has a course questions forum. Go in, but preferably just bring them to class on Tuesday. So if you have a burning question before, go into the forum. Don't email me. Why? If you email me and you asked a really good question, you have the answer, and 19 other students don't know the answer. If you put it in the forum, I can respond for all 19 students. Once I've done my reply, you know, I send in the beginning of the course a couple like all student emails, then I stop that. We all have enough emails in our inbox. We don't need reply alls, and it just drives me crazy. I mean, we all have probably, you know, if you're like me, whatever, 200 plus emails a day. I do a lot of books. So, but some of y'all probably have more. So let's keep the emails to a minimum, absolutely the necessary emails, and let's use our forums effectively within the campus so that we can avoid reply alls and that kind of thing. Thank you kindly for your time. I really look forward to seeing you on Tuesday after Martin Luther King Day for our first live session at 9 a.m. Central Dallas time. And as we say in Aggie land for the new students, with a thumbs up, we say, gig 'em. Look it up. Thank you kindly.